clearly you knew that Rashad, as your GA, was going to be in a lifetime of great advancement. What was your interactions with Dan in this search, and what do you think of him joining the staff?
So Rashad played for me at Houston and then GA'd for me, so I was super excited to have somebody that was young, right, but eager, right, wanted to get into the profession. Obviously, his dad's had a lot of success over at Duncanville High School, but great to always know the people that you're going to work with and have previous relationships. Like in this business, right, it's a lot of give and take, and the stronger that relationship is within the offensive staff, right, we can all get behind Will and push and help each other. So to have another voice in there with experience at the LA Rams and places like that, right, it's been awesome to have him here. So
have you seen him kind of integrate himself into the system so far? Obviously he's been here only a few days.
Yeah, so I think whenever you show up, I remember day one here, for me, right, it's kind of 1,000 miles an hour, and you're just trying to keep your head above water. But he's got people that he knows, right? And he spent some time, but he jumps right into the middle of it, right? Excited, he's excited to coach, excited to be on the grass. I think connects really, really well with our players. So I think he'll be more than fine.
How have you seen the running backs receive him so far?
I think good. I think really well. Like I said, I think he's a really good relationship guy. And so the first things he's doing is building a relationship with those, talking to mom and dad and all that kind of stuff. So he's done great.
What did you see from him in a recruiting capacity? I realize as a GA, there's things he can and can't do at the time, but what did you see from him in that sense as a recruiter years ago?
I think as a recruiter, so when we were at Texas and he was a GA and he was like, hey, I want to move forward in this industry. I want to move forward in this industry. What do I need to do? Right? I want to show people that I know ball. And I was like, well, part of this job, right, is also recruiting, right? And you can add value right now as a GA recruiting. And so he did that. He went and was working on guys at that time, like Jaquindon Jackson and people like that. So like I said, he's a relationship guy, through and through. Really easy guy to talk to. He can find common ground with anybody in the entire world. So that's most of what recruiting is. Yeah, sure, you got to sell the university, but this place sells itself, right? You got to build relationships with people so they feel comfortable coming to play with you.
Last week, Terrence said that Kenyan is standing out this spring. I think he said he's at all times the fastest player on the field. What have you seen from him so far in his second year?
Kenyan's doing a great job, man. So the challenge for Kenyan, the year one as a freshman, you're just trying to figure it out, especially at our position, right? You got to know the run game, you got to know the pass game. It's not just get out there and you always have the corner or whatever it was. Kind of, as a wideout when he was playing in high school, your blocking rules are a lot simpler, but once you start getting in the core and interacting with the offensive line, it's a lot more complicated. And so he's done a really good job. I mean, he's a super smart kid, compares really, really well. The best thing about him, I think, right, is extremely competitive. He's hard on himself, sometimes probably a little bit too hard on himself, but he's really, really matured, and he's finding a nice role. And I think those two older guys, credit to Pat and Ferg, done a really, really good job of integrating him, right? Bringing him and bringing guys along like Roger and those guys, those new guys in there. So I think the room dynamic and the leadership from those two guys really plays a role in how those guys develop as freshmen and even in sophomore.
How valuable was that success for Kenyan at the end of last year, being able to score that touchdown in the bowl game?
Oh man, you want to talk about a kid that was hungry to get on the field? He was, coach, what do I got to do? What do I got to do? What I got to do? And I was, well, you got to keep working, right? You haven't proven that you're better than. He's like, okay, I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep working. And I think game experience is always the best thing for everybody, right? There's nothing like getting out there and playing against somebody that just absolutely wants to beat you in every which way possible. So him scoring in the Fiesta Bowl, that's pretty cool first touchdown.
Terrence was also pretty flattered that when he heard that Coach Stein had said that a big goal for your guys' offense this season was to get people like Ferg and Pat the ball more. What makes them just capable now in year 3 of the offense, able to kind of do more with the ball in the offense?
I think we saw from Ferg last year, Ferg, I think in the first 3 or 4 games, Ferg coming off of injury was kind of finding his footing, and I thought in the back half of the season Ferg played really, really well. And then so when you watch that back half of the season, it's like, hey man, this is a guy that can make a lot of plays for us. He's an older guy, he's obviously a senior, right? So for him, right, it's like, how do we get this guy involved, right, and get him into routine and feel good about where he's at? For Pat, Pat's gone through injuries and he's fought his way, and man, I couldn't be prouder of that kid for who he is and the way that he's prepared to get himself to this point. He catches the ball unbelievably well. right? He is a linchpin in what we do offensively, right? I don't know if we didn't have Pat right now. I don't know what we would have to change a few things because Pat's role and what he's done for us. He's been captain consistent. If you go look at his grades, I mean they're like identical every single week, right? He doesn't make very many mistakes, and he makes if he does make a mistake, he rarely makes it twice. So for him, he is just, I mean, glue in there in terms of who can you count on? Who can you count on? Who can you count on? You can always count on Patrick Herbert.
At the Fiesta Bowl, you talked about Pat and the offseason of being able to train for the first time and develop. What's changed for him since that January till now?
So it's funny, I was talking to him, I was like now this offseason is different for you, right? It's not like, hey, you have a full offseason, let's see where your body develops and grows and your skill set grows. Right now it's like, hey, you're now in this, like, how can we hone my skill set, right? You're a giant kid, right, that has all, has everything that you can want in that position. So how do we continue to develop yourself, right? And for somebody, right, that's had a lot taken away from him early in his career, right, he's really grown in his confidence. And because he's grown in his confidence and had the off seasons and stuff like that, right, you're watching a player, I think, blossom in a great way.
What's the value, or how do you quantify that? Got those two guys were two of the 7 seniors who've been here for entering year 3, and 2 of like 20 guys. There's only 20 guys in the roster that have that.
Yeah.
So you've got 10% of that group. Like how do you put a number to that? How do you put a meaning and a value to having that in the room?
I think if you go across, like, regardless of whenever you're talking about historically across football or whatever team that you go to, what's the value of senior leadership that comes with high character, that comes with great practice habits, right? This is like model, like everybody on the team, look, this is what practice should look like, right? This is what preparation should look like. These guys have been through a lot, and it means a lot to them, right? And so when they speak, people listen, and it's made it a lot easier for us to say, like, hey, we want this player-led team, right? Well, who's going to be the people leading that team? And it's really easy to push those guys into the front because they do a phenomenal job of doing it. So invaluable. I don't know how you put a metric on that.
Dylan talked a lot about being the mentor for the QB room. Just, I'm curious, your interactions of seeing that play out, Dante and the other younger guys. Just how have you seen Dylan take that on?
I think Dylan's obviously played a ton of ball. Like, how many people can say he's thrown for what, like almost 11,000 yards or something like that? Like, how many people can say that? Very few, like, in the history of the game. And so when somebody like that says, like, hey, whoever, Austin Novosad, like, when I was playing somebody so-and-so, right, I saw this, right, here's a good indication, right, like, wow, like, that's a nugget right now, right? And if I'm Austin Novosad or Dante right now, right, hey, okay, like, this guy that's done it at a really, really high level, that's one of the, I don't know how many, like I said, like, he's got to be a top 25 passer, like, yards, like, of all time, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? I would guess, I don't know, right? So it's like, hey, it's probably something I can do and take, right? And what's that doing for those young guys? It's growing their game faster. I told my unit, the idea isn't, as a young guy, to go through the maturation process at the same pace as the older guys went through, right? The idea is that you take what they've learned, right, and you grow through that process a lot faster, and that so you mature faster than them, that you take everything, absorb everything from their game, right, and that you develop faster than them. And part of your job as a leader, right, is to help that process happen. And so for the quarterback unit, man, like, it's invaluable, right? And Dante will tell you, right? Like, he's like, I made mistakes as a freshman. I played, but I made mistakes, right? So he's learning, right? And because of that, right, he's developing and he's sharing knowledge, and it's a really, really good group dynamic that's in that room, I think.
What have you seen from two freshmen? And Roger was there for both practices. I know it's 8 practices a spring. It's probably closer to about a dozen or so for him. And AJ was a little banged up, but what have you seen from the 2 of them so far?
So AJ's still working through it right now. So we'll see, but like, he was 2-time All-State on both sides of the ball. You know what I mean? So that speaks for itself, I think. And I think he'll be plenty fine. He's super intelligent, right? He's salutatorian in his class. He'll be fine. And then Raj, man, he's just jumped right in the middle of it, man. He doesn't know what he's doing all the time, right? Has, again, transition from wide out to a tight end role, right? Okay, there's just a lot more new things, right? But he studies, he prepares, right? And I think when he looks up and sees, like, hey, Kenyan played as a freshman. Kenyan's playing as a sophomore, right? What can I learn from Pat and Ferg and those guys putting pressure on him? Like, hey, no, that's not okay. Like, you can't get away. That's not how we do things. I think he's going to be more than fine.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.